my credibility is not owned by me. My credibility is owned by my audience, and that's what we call ethos. Aristotle was the first person to talk about that 2,000 years ago, that we don't own our ethos. We don't own our credibility. The audience does. And so if you realize that, then we realize that we're up on that stage to serve. It is a privilege to be up there. And so what can I give? And if they're asking me to give my experience, I'm going to give everything that I have, and I'm going to do the work so that I'm ready for that moment that they've allotted for me, because they can take it away just as fast as they give it.
That's so good. Is there a technique that you use beyond the servitude, maybe initially to get past some of that, those butterflies, that fear, so that it eased you into the conversation?
Yeah. I don't know if I've ever shared this on a podcast. It's very, very sort of a very private thing, but I'll share it with you because I love the ethos of your podcast and what it's about. So one philosophy is, reality is that the butterflies will never go away, but you can teach them to fly in formation, right? And so the question is how? Just like anything, breathing is always a really important piece. That's the only bridge between the stress and the release, what we call system 1 and system 2, or sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic being the excitatory response. When you're highly nervous, you're very sympathetic at that point. But if you breathe, that is a parasympathetic or a relaxed response. And so breathing and oxygen, that's where box breathing, diaphragmatic breathing, all of that comes into play to really get you in the right state of mind. But for me, there's a sort of this mantra, visualization, meditation, prayer, if you will, that I go on, where I reassociate the stress, and I feel that stress in my chest, and I close my eyes. I can do it with my eyes open now, where I take a deep breath and I imagine myself climbing up this cliff, and I'm climbing up this mountain, if you will, that either side, if I slip, I die, right? It's so that, and I'm frantically climbing up. So I associate the frantic energy with the cliff, not the audience anymore, or the stage. And I go. And then all of a sudden I hit this precipice and I look over, and all of a sudden I see clouds below me, and I almost fell over. So I feel that nervous tension and that exhilaration and that awe and that fear all at once. And I take a deep breath and I say, Lord, help me express, not impress today. Those are the words of Jim Rohn. Let me express what I believe. I've done the work, and now it's time that I let go. And then I'll repeat the last words of Christ when he was on the cross. And it's funny how a few people remember these last words. They always say that, it is over, it is done. Why hast thou forsaken me? But they forget that right before he died, he said, into your hands I commend my spirit. And that was when he finally released. And it was, he was angry, it was all these things, but then there was this final moment of the purest expression of faith, which was surrender. And I say that, Lord, into your hands I commend my spirit, and I just jump into this precipice. And if I've been really nervous, I fall longer. It takes me longer to let go. And I finally breathe, and then something catches me, and I begin to fly. And in that moment, I open my eyes, and I imagine the top of my head opening up, and this light coming from the sky and going through me. And maybe that's a symbol of me being a vessel for a deeper message. But whatever it is, what I control is what happens prior to that moment. What I have to surrender is what happens from that moment forward. And so there's this great Venn diagram that shows just sort of two circles intersecting, right? And on the left side is discipline. On the right side is surrender. But in the middle where they overlap is flow. And I think that's what we achieve, is that flow when we have the discipline to do the work, but then when it comes time to perform, we surrender. One of my good buddies is the head coach of the University of St. Thomas basketball team. Went to high school together, and we're talking. He goes, it's interesting. It's like you have to think in practice so that you don't think in game times. And I think all of that applies.